Yes, good morning. Good morning, and welcome to Friday. Uh, Interesting. Used to, if I would tell my students that we only have one more Friday left in the school year, they would get all excited. Now it's kind of like, um, why can't we have school back? Well, we shall see. Uh, I just published on Canvas a couple of things for you to look at. Couple of videos. I will add this video to that later on so it can easily be found on Canvas. Notice that it did say on Canvas that our next unit test will be a week from today, covering this unit on revolution and romanticism. And so, yeah, there we are. Today, let us continue our discussion of revolution and romanticism, beginning with a discussion of Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte is looked at in two different ways throughout history. The French hail him as the great hero, probably the greatest Frenchman who ever lived. Although, ironically, and this is on your test, he was not Frenchman. He was Corsican. Corsican. He was Corsican, which meant that he was from the island of Corsica, which meant that he didn't look French. You say, well, what does that mean? Well, most French people were Gaelic. They were Germanic, actually. They had skin that looked like mine, white. They had the blue eyes. They had red hair, blonde hair, brown hair. Whereas Corsicans were more Italian in their appearance. Their skin was more olive. They had that Roman proboscis nose. Their eyes were brown. And, you and I might go, can't tell the difference. Well, to 18th century France, everybody could tell the difference. And being a Corsican, Napoleon, as great and as talented as he was, he probably, had it not been for the French Revolution, Napoleon would have spent his entire life as a low-ranking officer in the French army. And that would have been pretty much it. But instead, we have the French Revolution. And in the French Revolution, two things happen. Number one, a lot of French officers ahead of Napoleon get killed. Number two, Napoleon's skill shows up, because Napoleon, in many ways, I don't know how many of you people are watching that ESPN series called The Last Dance. Napoleon was a Michael Jordan-esque. He was an Amadeus, a Mozart of military strategy. Yeah, now he had his flaws, but I mean, the guy was good. He knew what he was doing. He was a great commander. And even with all that talent, once again, because he was Corsican, not French, Corsican, his life would have probably been spent in obscurity had it not been for the French Revolution. So, even though Napoleon was hailed as a conquering hero, embodying all the egalitarian ideas of the French Revolution, and hopefully by now you've paged up your Arts and Humanities Unit 10, Revolution and Romanticism document. Yes, we're on Roman numeral 4, Part E. Roman numeral 4, Part E. Even though Napoleon was hailed as a conquering hero, embodying all the egalitarian ideas of the French Revolution, he immediately made himself dictator and then later on emperor with the full support of the populace. You know, it's amazing how when somebody is popular, uh, people will throw all kind of support at him. You also have to remember that they made Napoleon emperor because Napoleon, or rather France, really was like only 10 years separated from having had a king, and so making this guy the new emperor, a guy who was very capable, a guy who's a national hero, a guy who everybody loved. It was kind of it wasn't that far of a stretch. But anyway, he made himself first dictator, then emperor, and he had full support of the populace. Napoleon did, in his defense, support the arts and humanities. Yes, he did. He robbed Egypt of some of its greatest treasures, and by the way, the French were not the only country to do that; the English as well. But yeah, he robbed France of some of its greatest treasures. I mean, for example, if you ever go to Paris, which I hope one day we can do again, but if you ever go to Paris, in the middle of Paris, there is this giant thing that looks like the Washington Monument. The Washington Monument, familiar, that long, tall, pointy thing in Washington, stands 559 feet, 9 1/8 inches. Yeah. I actually went to Washington, and our tour guide would sing that to us: 555, 9 and whatever, 559, 9 and 1/8. Yeah, it was. But anyway, Napoleon saw an obelisk in Egypt, a single stone obelisk, an obelisk made of one solid piece of stone. And he had his historical research team to take a saw that thing off, and then they put it into a wooden tube, and then sealed the tube, and they hauled it back to France. And so that was one of the things. But yes, the French archaeologists were just scouring over Egypt, snatching up some of the great Egyptian treasures. And then his army got surrounded, and Napoleon deserted them. Yeah, I mean, one of the great strengths of Napoleon was that he was a master of PR, public relations, propaganda. He knew how to make himself look good. And so, yeah, I mean, Napoleon, a lot of people, when they talk about the greatness of Napoleon, they don't talk about the fact that Napoleon takes an army to Egypt, and when things go south, he deserts the army and goes back to France. And in France, he is hailed as a conquering hero. Why? Well, he publicizes it. He creates a bunch of these little coins, and on coins, on one side, there's the face of Napoleon, and on the other side is engraved the pyramids, signifying the one battle that they did win in there. And so, but yes, he did. Napoleon did support the arts while he was conquering Europe. He turned the old royal palace, the old Tuileries Palace of the king in Paris, into the Louvre, the world's greatest art museum. Yeah. And the Louvre is the world's greatest art museum. Napoleon was responsible for doing that. And he snatched up bits of art, and they began collecting. And today the Louvre is this ginormous thing with the old palace at its center. He also began construction of the Arc de Triomphe. The Arc de Triomphe was a copy of the Arch of Constantine in Rome. And Napoleon actually built several structures in Paris. Notice part B there gives you figures which you can't look at now. Basically, what Napoleon was trying to do was to turn Paris into the new Rome. That's what you need to know. That he turned Paris in, he wanted to turn Paris into the new Rome, into make it a, to just like with our own capital, neoclassicism was the art and artistic and archaeological, architectural movement at the time. Napoleon wanted Paris to look like Rome, so it became the new Rome. Yes, also notice that Napoleon had his own sister sculpted in the nude, trying to make her look like Venus. Also, a portrait of a black woman by Marie Guillermine Benoit. This painting was a protest to how women were being treated in France since 1789. It was a protest to the fact that the Enlightenment, the Revolution, had left women out of the picture as equal citizens. Now, here's something that will be on your test. Note the painting of Napoleon by Jacques-Louis David. And while you can't see the painting, you should know this. This guy is Jacques-Louis David, the same guy who painted The Death of Marat, the one we talked about yesterday. The same guy who will paint Napoleon crossing the Alps, which he crosses not on a white horse, but a mule. David painted that. This guy, Jacques-Louis David, is known as the first painter, the official painter of the Revolution. His name is on your test. Jacques-Louis David, the official painter of the French Revolution. Loved Napoleon, this guy did. Now, this type of art where it shows Napoleon crossing the Alps, it shows Napoleon sitting on a white horse, which has all sorts of psychosexual symbolism, riding a white horse. It's romantic. This painting that shows Napoleon sitting on a horse, and the horse is rearing back. And if you look at the hooves of the horse, it's like about 2 steps from the edge of this cliff. And how Napoleon's not looking at that, he's urging his men up the cliff. This painting that if you have been in my room, and you have, it's that big painting in the room that has me on it. Yeah, that's Napoleon crossing the Alps now. And that's Romanticism. It makes Napoleon look heroic, to look dashing, to look dramatic. And see, that's part of the essence of Romanticism, to have these pictures, these works of art that are romantic, heroic, bold, not realistic, but yeah, so exciting. I mean, the best current examples of Romanticism, as far as art, if you've ever bought a comic book, a superhero comic book of some kind, either Marvel or DC Comics, and the front cover is always a romantic pose. It shows the heroes with their ripping muscles that look like mine in full flex, and if they're battling an animal, the animal's teeth are bared and just about to strike. Yeah, that's Romanticism. Yeah. But for the record, worth noting, for the record, Napoleon did lead his French army over the Alps into Italy. But for the record, truth be told, Napoleon did not ride a white horse that might bolt or might rear up and throw him off. He rode a mule, much more trustworthy animal, a mule. A black mule, in fact. But of course, David can't paint Napoleon riding a mule. That would be a cartoon. So he puts him on a white horse. And that white horse was like rearing up. Very brave, very dashing, very Lone Ranger-esque. Okay. In other colonies, let's go on Roman numeral 4. In other colonies, the revolutionary movement caught fire, and by 1830, European colonies in the Western Hemisphere were almost gone, almost eradicated. There were almost none left, except for Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Haiti. Haiti will be the first Latin American country to declare independence from Europe. Say again, Haiti, which, by the way, today Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, but Haiti will be the first Latin American country to declare its independence from Europe, France in that case. Haiti was the crown jewel of the French Western Empire because Haiti grew tremendous amounts of sugar, and sugar was money. That Napoleon, so much sugar that Napoleon needed this sugar to finance his war campaign. And so Napoleon, after the French Revolution, had freed the slaves in the French Empire, in the French domains. Napoleon comes along and says, sorry, slaves, you guys got to go back to work. We need the money. And because of that, these slaves then revolted. So the inhabitants of Haiti, almost wholly the descendants of African slaves. I mean, you know, one tragedy is surpassed by another. Haiti, if you've ever been, and I know a lot of our students do, for example, go on mission trips to Haiti and the Dominican Republic. But Haiti, the populace, the people of Haiti, are almost, once again, wholly descendants of imported African slaves. Well, prior to Europeans coming to the Western Hemisphere, including Haiti, there were Native Americans who lived on Haiti. They're not there anymore. They were eradicated, left, as in dead. Disease, yes, but a lot of them were simply just eradicated through warfare. Okay, so anyway, the inhabitants of Haiti, almost wholly the descendants of African slaves who had been transported to Haiti in bondage as slaves, revolted and declared independence of France under the leadership of, oh, look, another name for your test. The Black Napoleon, he was called. Toussaint L'Ouverture. His name is on your test. Yes, poor Mr. L'Ouverture eventually surrendered to a large French army under the promise that the French were not going to reimpose slavery. Nice promise. And so Toussaint L'Ouverture was taken to France under the guise that they were going to negotiate. Instead, he was imprisoned in the French Alps, where he died within a year. His lieutenant, though, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, took over the revolt and, with the aid of the Napoleonic Wars, kicked the French out of Haiti forever, and it then turns around and establishes himself as a dictator. Haiti really, and it is, Haiti has never really recovered. Today is the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. In South America, the revolutions were led by peoples called Creoles. Creoles, you know, my wife's from South America. She is Colombian. And I don't think she's Creole necessarily, at least not judging. I don't know, of course, but at least not judging from her appearance. She is, she's more of a direct descendant of South American Native Americans from her features, her physical features, which means absolutely nothing to me. But the fact of the matter is that in Central and South America, there were a group of people called Creoles. What are Creoles? Creoles were people who came from Spain and Portugal, mostly Spain, moved to the Western Hemisphere, and then they gave birth to children. In other words, Creoles were the descendants of Europeans. Simply put, Creoles were people of European descent who lived anywhere from Mexico all the way down to the tip of Argentina and Chile. Yes. Creoles, however, and I would have to draw my pyramid, which I'm not going to do. It's not going to help you. Creoles were not allowed to work to do the job of government during this era, which made the Creoles jealous. And just like the American Revolution, you can sit there and say that the revolutions of Central and South America were motivated by freedom and all this kind of good business. Simple fact of the matter was the revolutions of Central and South America, like the American Revolution, was motivated by money, power. The Creoles, who were European descent, were jealous of the fact that they could never take over the top echelons of administration in Central and South America. And so they revolted. Okay. Simon Bolivar led the revolution that freed Colombia. And you know, my wife I have it spelled Columbia. That's the American spelling. Colombia, the country, is spelled with two O's. Yeah. Which later became Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, and Panama. Jose de San Martin aided the revolution of Peru. Bernardo O'Higgins freed Chile. Here's a big fat hint for you. On your matching section of your next test, those three guys' names will be on there. Yes. Simon Bolivar, Jose de San Martin, and Bernardo O'Higgins. I've always thought that Bernardo O'Higgins was an odd name as the first ruler of Chile. Because as you and I know, O'Higgins is an Irish name. But we tend to forget that the Irish left Ireland and moved all over the world. Mostly to the United States, yeah, but they also moved to Australia and, yeah, some to South America. Okay, Roman numeral 5. A new force began to invade the lives of Europeans and every other corner of the globe, and this was the effect of industrialism and the Industrial Revolution. And you better believe that industrialism and the Industrial Revolution have a tremendous effect upon the art world. For one thing, it's a lot of money. If you ever go to the art museum over in Cincinnati, one of their sculptures that are on the first floor is a sculpture. It has an adult male who is obviously a worker. He's wearing a steel worker's vest, and then it has two children. I believe the boy has an easel for painting, and the girl has a musical instrument. And the name of the sculpture is Industry Protects Art and Music. And that's the truth. I mean, the Industrial Revolution made money. Money that gets turned into art. During the Industrial Revolution, would make many people wealthy. And it did do that. The Industrial Revolution made many people wealthy. And eventually, the Industrial Revolution improved the lives of many. It does. I mean, everything that you are touching right now, whether it's your desk, your pen, your computer, your clothes, was mass produced as a result of the Industrial Revolution. But beyond that, I mean, things like the fact that we all have the same time, meaning that right now it's 10:25 here in Burlington, Kentucky. Well, it's also 10:25 in Miami, Florida. and in New York City and every other place in the Eastern time zone. That's one of the results of the Industrial Revolution, standardized time. That because everybody needed to be at work at the same time and leave at the same time. And trains and railroad traffic and travel, Industrial Revolution, time became a critical factor. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, time really wasn't that important. Most things were considered on time if they were done within the same day. Okay. Part B. Millions of workers crowded themselves and their families into tenement dwellings that were unsafe, unsanitary, and yet the best way to eke out a living in this day, as farming had become unproductive in England and landlords drove their tenants off their land. So, in other words, yeah, lots and lots and lots and lots of people moved to the places where factories were, because in the early days of the Industrial Revolution, there were no such things as cars. So if you worked somewhere, you had to live close enough to walk there. And everybody lived there. And that meant you have people living on top of each other. And in a day when these cities did not have modern sewer systems, modern ways to bring water into the people and to dispose of wastewater away from the people, these places just reeked. London, for example, one of the first industrial cities, was referred to as the Big Stink because it did, reeking. Eke out a living, as farming had become unproductive in England and landlords had driven the tenants off their lands. This revolution was the era of steel and rail and chemicals and its productions. Okay, we are going to start there on Monday because, yes, I've given you a couple of things to look at, and eventually we're going to talk more and more about the Romantic Age. And so, yeah, I think this is a good place to end. So have a good weekend, and I will see you later.